road. I call the attention of my companions to the endless line of automobiles travelling alongside the Hudson River. I thought there was also gasoline rationing here. Hocker notes just as a ferryboat with the marking New York Central System comes alongside. A civilian, who has been on board since early morning instructing us on filling out all the forms, calls out, "Attention, only 3 men at a time on the gangway. In your left hand have your soldbuch, and in your right hand the forms. Give the papers to the Americans, move on to the gangway and go over to the ferry. That is all. Move out and no shoving. You all may go on land." While the deck of the Thomas Marshall slowly empties as the ferryboat takes us on, we see some distance away other ferryboats which also have German prisoners on board. Apparently we are not the only prisoners that the convoy has brought here. An hour later we leave the Thomas Marshall with a quiet sadness in our hearts. We turn our backs on the brave ship and its fair crew. Awaiting our fate, hundreds of eyes stare at the land of unlimited opportunity that we are quickly approaching. It is exactly 12:18 p.m. as Hocker and I set foot in the new world. Like lightning, my thoughts speed back the more than 4,000 miles to the homeland and search without success for my dear loved ones. As a consequence, an impatient US soldier shoves me in the ribs with a red-lacquered stick and brings me back immediately to reality. "Let's go," bellows the soldier, thereby introducing us to the American tempo, something that hits us like a whirlwind. In an unbelievably short time, we are separated into groups of 50 and marched to gigantic barracks just as the captured freight of another steamer from the convoy disappears. Faster than we can comprehend, we are in a room, and in obedience to the commands, tear the clothing from our bodies, while blacks with gleaming white teeth throw net sacks with 2 brass tokens down onto our heads. Seconds later, our clothing is in the sacks on the way to the delousing chambers. The only exception is our leather boots, which we carry into the shower room. The Americans have organized things well, and we think of nothing until after we have showered, dried, been sprayed with delousing powder, searched for skin disease, weighed, measured, put on our damp rags, and are herded together into a large room. But there is no time to rest. After the last of our group of 50 stumbles into the room, the wall behind us opens to make free the 90-foot distance to the end of the barrack. We line up in rows, 15 feet apart, and make our way out of the room. As we go around the corner, there is a line of guards with their backs to the water apparently stationed to prevent a freedom-loving prisoner from jumping in. These soldiers, however, demand little attention. Instead, it is a single fat individual, with the characteristics of a specific race that has good cause to hate us, who becomes the focus of our interest. He shoves a long needle into the buttocks of each German who passes by, and although far removed from every battlefield, carries out his own kind of war. Immediately I stop running and limp on past him, looking at my wound as he yells and claps his hands for joy over my pain. Once I reach the end of the barracks, I turn and grin at the narrow-minded jerk. With his fleshy face and belly hanging over his belt, he repeats the malicious applause, and I respond by giving him the finger, then quickly slip weasel-like around the corner, but not without first stealing a glimpse of our furious oppressor. In the next moment I reach a room lit only by a skylight, and in which my comrades and I look like caged apes at the railroad tracks that run through the building. But here there is no wait. In 30 minutes we find ourselves in a building adjacent to a New York railroad station, and within another half hour at least 1,200 German prisoners of war are assembled and once again subjected to a search. For this purpose, containers are set up which look just like our food barrels in Le Mans and Cherbourg, but here they are used as garbage cans into which the black soldiers throw the last of our possessions. Using my total knowledge of English, I speak to a soldier in an attempt to recover my earlier diary notes. Even though they are severely damaged, I am successful thanks to Dr. Brown, who tries to explain to the black soldier that the notes are necessary for his study. As the man turns his back to the garbage can, I reach in quickly and lift out my notebook and my shaving kit, in which I find my cigarette case. We are not the only ones who recover lost possessions. Actually, it is not so hard since the blacks consider it all trash that their white countrymen pull out of the pockets of strangers to throw in front of their brooms. At 5:35 p.m., as we climb into the train cars, Another wonder of the new world occurs, along with those we have already experienced. The skyscrapers, auto traffic, and exemplary demonstration of organisation. The entire train is made up of first-class Pullman coaches, on whose fine upholstered seats we are to sit. But there is no waiting or pushing here and there. The doors are barely closed behind the guards, who get on with us, when a signal sounds and the train begins to move. Only two things trouble us: that we can only raise the windows a short distance, since small pieces of wood have been nailed to the outside frame, and that armed guards are assigned to each coach. But in reality, we are prisoners of war, and not the sons of millionaires going on vacation. While my pen scratches over my paper recording what I have experienced today, the last houses of New York flash past, and an officer enters our coach and reads the 5 rules for travel. You will stay in your seats in this coach until we reach our destination. You will eat and sleep here. You will raise your left hand when you must go to the toilet, and wait to be recognized by the guard. You will raise your right hand when you want a drink of water, and only one will be permitted out of his seat at a time. Who feels sick should indicate to the guards by raising both hands. The officer has barely left our wagon to continue his litany in the next, when 2 blacks in snow-white jackets appear and pass out cups and paper plates. They are followed by 2 others who bring a canteen of heavenly-smelling coffee, serving the costly drink in the cups we have been given. A few minutes later, the plates are filled with a meagre serving of baked ham, eggs, and fried potatoes. It tastes much better than the fare on board the ship, and we gulp it down in terrible hunger. It is too bad that our plates are empty, but there are no second helpings. To our disappointed faces, the guards simply tell us to throw our cups and plates out through the crack in the window. Throw it away. You will receive everything new. It was something we had heard before, but sorry to say had not yet been fulfilled. Finally, we are left to ourselves. Our tired arms and legs stretch out while our eyes take in the foreign landscape through which the train hurries on its way. Now, what do you think of America? Siegfried asks, yawning, with his mouth open so wide that you can see the 2 gold crowns on his back teeth. I like it, I laugh, free of the fear that had been troubling my soul. No reason to complain. I do believe that all of them here are filthy rich, offers Hocker, who sits next to me as the train thunders through Chester. The organisation in the harbour was impressive, but when you think that everyone here is rich, you have been asleep, Willie, Schultz instructs. I noticed, by the way, at the train station, how a pair of women in uniform made the sign of cutting our throats. It is clear to me that even in this land there is much that we will have to face. But Schultz, I did not expect a beauty queen to throw her arms around me. By comparison with Russia, for example, the difference is like heaven and hell. There is no doubt about that, he agrees. Only, look for yourselves. He interrupts himself, pointing to some shabby houses that we can make out in the dusk. That's bullshit, Siegfried proclaims. We have dilapidated houses at home. In any case, I have already seen some girls with legs up to here. One must consider the beauty, Schultz, and overlook the rest. I'll recite something for you, which, although not by me, is still valid, Schultz declares, as though taking an oath, and begins, Many lands I have not seen, but in everything I strive for the best. If my heart is ever ready to feel a need for foreign lands, even if I wanted to lie, and even if I could, German cultivation surpasses all. You presented that very well, laughs Siegfried, while Hocker and I, impressed but quiet, look out the window. These 2 verses from the German song by Walter von der Vogelweide say everything that distinguishes us: love of the homeland, loyalty to the fatherland, and a brave character. That is what I want to remind you of before the so-called New World turns your heads. Schultz adds and falls back, dead tired, into the soft benches as our train rolls into Baltimore. Immediately all the sleepers are awake. The train stops on track 3, and we have a clear glimpse into the life of a city that has not been touched by war. People come and go, like in all railroad stations throughout the world, but it is another picture than what we have known for years in Europe. Just like it used to be, someone sums up the impression of us all as the train begins to move and we fall back into our seats. The trip continues. In a racing tempo, we speed through the fields. Only here and there the black night is torn by the light of a small town. The bone-weary figures turn their heads into the cushions and immediately fall into an unconscious sleep. As night turns to day, the cities of Harrisburg and Pittsburgh are behind us. The land appears gigantic and virgin as the sun shines in the unending distance. Here and there a farm lies in the sparse vegetation of early spring. In contrast to Europe, it takes an hour before the train reaches another inhabited place. Weary and hungry, we look bleary-eyed at the unpopulated stretches. Finally, a black porter appears and serves coffee, ham, eggs, and fried potatoes. If there were not 14 hours difference between this and our last meal, one would believe it is a continuation of the first, because there is no difference in the food that is offered. Didn't I say that hunger would be our true companion in America? Asks Schultz, as we, in disappointment, throw the empty cups and plates out the window. Yes, Schultz, that's what you said, and that's why I ate all my reserves. Siegfried laughs without concern in the early morning. I certainly understand something about cooking, but I must admit that the stuff does taste good, even if we have to eat the same thing again, Hocker honestly concedes. Only too little, way too little, Schultz adds. You were always satisfied. What's the problem that you find a hair in everything? I search out in Schultz's closed face. Nothing's wrong, absolutely nothing. Everything is in the best order. We travel in Pullman coaches through the United States, permit blacks to serve us, and imagine that we will end up in some resort. There's a half-breed Indian with a rifle, and when we want to limp to the back, we have to first get his permission. You make a great show for the little food we get, and act like ham and eggs were discovered here. Therefore I must look into your radiant eyes when such a war profiteer stands at the railroad crossing in his luxury car. But just wait and see how thick we come in the ink. Are you completely turned around? I ask in amazement. In no way, he replies with scorn. Schultz, I hear from you only envy. Be honest, you imagined America would be different. Siegfried throws at him. You thought for sure we would be transported in cattle cars and land someplace in the deep forest? Then you would have been able to complain, and it would have been better for you. Instead, we are going through a cultivated land, sitting in a first-class coach, and you are disappointed because you can't see the forest for the trees. You are stupid, challenges Schultz. Don't you know that everything here has been cut down and that they carried out such a pillage that even the climate has changed? Have you forgotten that this country is at war, and it's easier to make first-class coaches available than freight cars? Congratulations, Schultz. Your memory still works, Siegfried responds with mischief. Perhaps I don't know enough about this country. How should we know anything about it? I question. I know that it was discovered by Columbus in 1492. Look out there, the city is called Columbus, Hocker yells. See, I'm right. Columbus was certainly here. I join in the general laughter and look out the window at the city as the train roars on. And what else do you know about this country? Schultz once again picks up the topic. As I already said, not much. After the discovery, Europeans came and settled the land. New York was called... There were people here before Columbus's discovery, says Schultz sharply. Clear the Indians, Siegfried quickly adds. That's right, as Schultz pushes on. And where are they now? I suppose the young ones are in the army and the old ones hunting, Siegfried offers in simplicity. You know very well where they are, my friend, Schultz snaps. Then say so. They were exterminated just like they will exterminate us. That's what you were leading up to, Siegfried continues in scorn. Let's forget the nonsense, boys. It doesn't lead anywhere, I break in once again. Why shouldn't it lead somewhere? It's a fact. Or will you argue that this country belongs to the Indians? Schultz continues, unwilling to leave the fruitless topic. Naturally, you are right, but that is a long, long time ago. Later, they had to bring in black slaves and so on and so forth. It is always the might of the powerful that will rule the world. What else do you want to know? I ask in disgust. Nothing more, because you are already blinded by the glitter and riches of this land, Schultz responds, feeling misunderstood. Don't be so dumb, Schultz, Siegfried brings from his reserve. I am impressed with the people here. Their forefathers had enough of Europe's oppression and fought here for their existence. As the land grabbers tried to implement the 18th century European methods of oppression, the citizens here turned to their weapons. The first shots were fired in Massachusetts that led to the War of Independence with England. In Boston, they preferred to throw the English tea into the ocean rather than pay taxes to a distant king. Even Goethe was impressed with the result of this struggle. America, you have it better. That's it, Schultz, that also impresses me, in contrast to the European hair-splitting. And I recommend that you open your eyes, throw away all your prejudices. It is never too late to learn something more. In Baltimore last night, your poem from the 12th century closed your eyes. The city has nearly 1 million inhabitants and over 1,000 factories. Now you are worrying about Indian wars instead of looking out to the land to see what's happening. In anger, Siegfried chews on his fingernails after his admonition. Schultz is upset and withdraws in the corner of bitter truth. It was the influence of our sumptuous meal, I think to myself, and am ashamed of my own lack of knowledge of America. While the train thunders in a southern direction out of Columbus, most of our comrades are asleep. Even the guards are no longer as attentive as at first. Wearily, they are posted between the door casing and gape sleepy-eyed at the other prisoners. In their slumber, they are not disturbed by any thought of escape. Since there is nothing special to see out the window, we also close our eyes until the train rolls into Cincinnati and the black caretakers put dishes in our sleeping hands. Immediately everyone is awake. Even the guards press on the windows. "Cincinnati," says one of the guards without thinking, to a German who immediately answers no. "Yes," says the guard, staring at the wobbly Schwab. "No," he gushes again as the American starts to wonder himself. "Of course." He tries his luck once more. "Kiss my ass, you dumb fool," is the reply in German. "What's wrong?" I ask quickly, to try to clear up the misunderstanding. "That guy is crazy," the honest Schwab dryly answers. He continues to ask me if I am a Nazi. "Sind Sie ein Nazi?" Everyone shakes with laughter as the guard looks at us, perplexed. Quickly I explain to him and he understands. Forgetting his orders, he stumbles out of the wagon, rolling with laughter. A moment later, he returns with his fellow guards, and the laughing does not stop. Finally, Cincinnati is behind us, but the guard continues to come and see the man who provided the best joke of the day. After a long stop at night, the train continues into the third day with its long and by now uncomfortable trip westward through the broad land. The 2 meals a day and lukewarm drinking water do not help to make the trip very comfortable for us. In all ends and corners of the wagon, grumbling is in full force. Seldom does a fleeting village offer any change. But the Americans conduct themselves properly toward us in all places. Not one false statement or threat can be registered. Although it is easy to see the surprise in their faces when they see us, quickly they fall back into indifference and in part sympathy for us. But hate, visible hate, is not there. Even our friend Schultz appears to have lost his initial rejection of everything American. "Do you believe that we will be herding cattle in Texas?" He laughs after a meal of hot dogs, potato salad, and coffee. "It would be wonderful to ride a stallion over the prairie," I say, looking out at the sparse landscape. "You read too much Karl May." He kindly winks at me, at which Siegfried joins in the conversation. In Texas it is hot and lonely, nothing but cattle, cow herders, and no girls. But before we reach the city, the train unexpectedly rolls across a bridge under which the dirty brown flow of a mighty river drifts southward. Missouri River or Mississippi River is the question, and regretfully no one is in a position to answer for sure. Even the guards shake their heads. But quickly the scene changes, and we forget the wild, unregulated river as the train comes to a stop on one of the many tracks in the railroad yard in St. Louis. A large and old city lies hidden from us in the haze. We have a great desire to visit the city, to glimpse inside the houses, simply to be with people again. But we are prisoners shut off from life. Instead, we watch the railroad workers and especially the children on the nearby street. We observe that nearly all of the men are wearing military pants, shirts, and jackets, while the children, in comparison to Europe, are more practically clothed. The boys wear simple blue or khaki-coloured pants and a coloured shirt. The pants on the girls reach only to their calf, and they wear blouses in dazzling colours. In their play, they are just as active and dirty as everywhere. When they notice that we are watching them, the little ones stick their fingers in their mouths, while the bigger ones hop the tracks and come to our wagons, where they stand in shock. Although they do not stop gazing at us, they do seem a little more trustful. Certainly they think we are the damn Nazis who come from legendary old Europe, about whom their teachers have told so many horrible things. Since the train does not appear to be ready to leave, a large group of people gathers around the window. The prisoners look with lustful eyes at a group of sumptuous young ladies who are loading packages into a transport close by. They throw flirting glances toward our windows. When one of the railroad workers starts up a conversation with us, even the girls come closer. Not one of our usually adventuresome group moves from his place, even though the girls generously make their way to us with blouses filled with risk and desire. It's not that we are not taken with the charm of their hills and valleys, but it is our neglected clothes, long unkempt hair, 3-day beards, and the whole shitty situation that keep us in our places. But even the workers are not in their evening dress, and when we are addressed in German by one of them through the crack in the window, everything seems to happen naturally. "How are you, my countrymen?" An old and quite worn worker asks us in a Schwabish dialect and looks compassionately through the dusty window. "Let me wipe the dirt from the window so that we can see each other better," he begins and goes right to work. "So," he says with a nearly toothless mouth, "now, how are you?" "Good, as far as someone in our situation can expect," I answer him quickly. "Be glad that you are out of that crap. I was in the last war with the Prussians and I know the swindle. No one needs to tell me about it. I was a non-commissioned officer and I'm happy that I am too old for this one. You are so dirty. Did you come right out of the trenches?" "No, we spent the winter in a French field behind barbed wire." Hocker laughs. "Even worse, I did the same thing. I was captured in 1918, released in November, and came to the States in 1924. Stay here, boys. We have enough girls who want to marry industrious men. Take a look for yourselves." He laughs, pointing to the girls. "What is the matter, Pop?" one of the bold girls asks as she comes up to the window. "Just my type," growls Hocker. "Boy, you have good taste," I think to myself. She is really a nice dish. Her well-formed breasts press against the thin blouse, and their round form is easy to discern. "She is a racetrack," snaps Siegfried hungrily. "Just look at those dangerous curves." "Don't you have a souvenir for the young lady?" the old man asks over the noise at the window. "Yes," says Hocker, and lightning-like tears a star from his shoulder and passes it through the window crack to the old man, who in turn gives it to the good-looking girl. Blushingly, she thanks Hocker and goes back with swaying hips to her girlfriends, holding the star over her charming head like a victory trophy. Siegfried grouses. "What a damn thing to do to come and parade something like that in front of us after such a long time. Here, boys, a few cigarettes." The old man appears once again before the window and shoves 3 packs of Lucky Strikes through the crack, something that is happening at the same time all along the train. "That's the goddamn Germans," bellows a fat, recently arrived Yankee, shaking his head and nervously chewing his cigar as he sends the men back to work. A short time later, the train moves out again. Accompanied by the friendly goodbyes of the girls and children, we fall into the dreams of an endless night. Early in the morning on the 5th day of our journey, we reach Tulsa. It is Sunday throughout the world, and once again we have the opportunity to see well-fed citizens in their Sunday best streaming into a magnificent church. How that can pain an innocent prisoner's heart, only those who have been in a similar situation and who have had to look in the uncomforted eyes of their comrades can know. But it is useless in the spring of 1945 to complain of injustice when we consider how unjustly millions of others have been treated. Then others are concerned every minute with the necessities of life while we journey toward a safe but unknown fate. As the temperature rises, we leave the city, and an hour later we are immersed in the loneliness of the hilly landscape. As the heat in our wagon climbs to an almost unbearable temperature, the train stops at an open station. Outside the window stand white-helmeted American soldiers holding their rapid-fire weapons at ready. "Get out!" Rings in our dust-covered ears, and all the doors open. With well-practiced precision, the entire transport is assembled in 3 lines in only a few minutes. Slightly irritated, Hocker, Siegfried and I notice that Schultz, in the confusion, was shoved by the military police into another group. But he waves to us, unconcerned. We look calmly toward the camp that lies about a mile in the distance, and whose green and white painted barracks glimmer in promise under the southern sun. Surrounded by military police, the first column, in which we 3 friends find ourselves, begins the march toward the camp. Within 20 minutes we reach the gate, over which stands in large letters, Camp Gruber, Oklahoma. We don't know whether to laugh or whether we are just dreaming about the blade-sharp creases in the khaki pants of the prisoners strolling around the compound. Once again we are counted, searched, marched toward the apparent heavenly kingdom through lanes formed by former North African veterans, and welcomed by the German camp spokesman. "I greet you in the name of the comrades in the prisoner of war camp, Camp Gruber, in the state of Oklahoma, and offer you our hearty welcome." The German camp spokesman begins his speech, as we, the veterans of the slime camps of France, sit in the dining hall. Judging by your appearance, it does not take many words to know what lies behind you, but you can be sure that inside these barbed wires everything will be done to make your heavy burden lighter. And now I wish you a good appetite. Quietly and with everyone busy with his own thoughts, we grasp the eating utensils. In the nickel-plated trays are piles of roast beef, spinach, potatoes and pudding. Because we are not used to such a feast, we begin slowly, then with greater enthusiasm, and finally with great pleasure to enjoy the tasty meal. But the dining room is boiling hot and thick, unending drops of sweat pour from our bodies. Finally, like refugees, we leave the hospitable room and go back toward the barracks. "This heat is terrible," stammers Hocker, and like me rips the dirty uniform from his body. Strangers, with whom we must share their living space, observe us with obvious disgust. "In 14 days you will be used to the climate," a large, blonde-haired soldier lying on his bed advises us with a friendly laugh. Surprised, I look at him. On his nightstand, next to the picture of a black-haired girl, no one other than Adolf Hitler looks out from a homemade frame. Now I notice that nearly all of these former members of the Afrika Korps have small swastika flags over the head of their beds. It dawns on me that in truth we are in a different world. After 2 hours of a death-like midday sleep, I roll out of the sweat-soaked cover onto my feet and, with Hocker, follow the call to get our clothing issue. As we come back, I notice with astonishment that someone else has apparently taken up residence in our places, because lying on the beds in careful order are brand new toothbrushes, fine soap, shaving equipment, and wood sandals. "Did someone make a mistake?" I ask with contained anger. "The stuff belongs to you, comrades. Thanks is not necessary because it is from what we have extra." The blonde-haired finally moves himself to explain. "Yes, but we can't—" "Yes, you can," he cuts me off. "You can actually do more. That is, go into the shower room and change yourselves into human beings. We know how you feel. We travelled halfway around the world before we could finally have a shave." By evening roll call, most of those from our transport stand in tip-top form, clothed in the khaki uniforms. Only the long hair and pale faces separate us from the old-timers, who, for the most part, wear the field caps of Rommel's army. Before dinner, I have the pleasure of greeting an acquaintance from my neighbourhood. "We'll drink a bottle of beer together in the canteen tonight," he says, as we say goodbye after a chat, just like we had run into each other in a German barracks. "I wish you could say that." I laugh at him. "Oh, yes." He remains standing. There is beer in the canteen. At 7 p.m. we meet each other at the bar in the canteen. Generously, my acquaintance buys a variety of things for me. In amazingly well-stocked shelves lie cigarettes, tobacco, billfolds, and other toilet articles. There are also underwear, wood sandals, socks, and towels. It is impossible to describe with what feelings I take the whole thing in. But I do not have any time to spend with my thoughts because my companion pushes me into another room, where we find a free place and sit down behind our bottles of beer. At 9 p.m., the lights go out and I know nothing anymore. Have I really experienced this day, or am I lying in a tent in France, crazy with fever? After the most thorough cleansing ordeal of my life, I am in the shower dressing room and slip into the white underwear and the khaki uniform of the American Army with the painted letters PW. In a cloud of perfume mixed with aftershave lotion, Hocker and I leave the bath facilities with a regained consciousness and go into the mess hall to eat breakfast. We take milk and cornflakes from the counter and sit down at a table. It's too bad that Schultz ended up in another compound, I say to Hocker as I bend over my milk bowl. Perhaps it would be possible for him to change with someone, Hocker suggests. Possible, I agree. Let's give it a try. But look, here comes Siegfried. Hello, how are the two of you doing? You brothers smell like French whores. He grins all over and sits down by us. Schultz was unlucky, he continues. We were just talking about him, I answer. Oh, well, let's not spoil our appetite. This is a stinking good store, as he turns to his cornflakes. Do you like your barracks? Hocker asks. Not exactly. I am not with any of the old group. Do you know that the idiots here think we are all traitors and deserters? He says bitterly. That's not possible, I insist. Listen to me. Keep your mouth shut and don't talk about the lost war here, Siegfried advises. They will throw you into the barbed wire. In my barracks, everyone has Adolf hanging over his bed. By the way, supposedly someone was tried here for high treason and hanged. Just where did you dig up these cock and bull stories? I ask in unbelief. You can hear it all in my room. He nods back and forth while spooning the milk from his bowl. It is understandable. I try to place myself in the world of thought of these men of the Afrika Korps. Part of them have been prisoners since 1942 and don't know about the situation in Russia or France. But they have newspapers here, for hell's sake. They must know what is going on. They don't believe it, Siegfried interjects. The best thing for us to do is keep our mouths shut. Otherwise there will only be trouble, and that doesn't help anyone. I don't criticize anyone that still believes in what we all once hoped. The day will come when everyone will have to correct his outlook. But I do condemn those who scream that they knew what was going to happen ever since 1933, and then trample on others while they buddy up to the Americans. I'm of the same opinion, Siegfried adds. But it doesn't matter at all. If you went along, you are condemned. The Americans don't care what we think or don't think. They are only interested in victory. Hocker ends the discussion as we gather our dishes together. After morning roll call, we are sent to the barber while the work groups go out to pick cotton. In a conversation with the German camp spokesman, we learn that not all of us will necessarily stay in this camp, but that all non-commissioned officers will be transferred to another camp if they elect not to work. Although he is of the opinion that we should be of as little use to the Americans as possible, the camp spokesman recommends that in our own interest we should go to work. The days will pass more quickly and we can earn $20 a month, which in purchasing power is about the same as 20 Reichsmarks. Otherwise, we receive only $5 and are denied the right to purchase tobacco. He also thinks that things are a little confused at this time and we will have to wait and see how everything goes. That answers the question about Schultz. With the hope that in a few days we will be reunited, the three of us enter the barber shop and finally are rid of our long manes. During the course of the morning we are not bored. The time is taken up in filling out registration forms, a doctor's examination, shots, photographs and fingerprints. Finally, about 1 p.m., we are once again assembled in the dining room. The well-prepared noon meal consists of sauerkraut, mashed potatoes and mutton chops. It tastes wonderful, but the terrible heat makes us sleepy. The change in climate at this time of year makes it especially hard for the body to adjust. In order to prevent the loss of body salt, salt tablets are distributed, and the doctors encourage us to drink at least 2 quarts of water a day. After we have drunk 1 quart, we disappear into the barracks. We lie on our beds in our underwear and wait for the coolness of evening. Shortly before the return of the work details, we friends undertake a tour of the camp. The rectangular barracks, built of plywood, remind one at first of the 12-man army tents with which we became acquainted in Alençon. Painted green on the outside, they are very comfortably outfitted. The bright grey walls help the small windows provide excellent light to the interior. On the somewhat larger side walls, there are single iron frame beds painted black. The nightstands are built by the prisoners themselves, and, for the most part, decorated with pictures of family members. The shelves hold toilet articles and writing materials. The prisoner's wardrobe consists of a khaki shirt and trousers, an olive green suit, underwear, and 2 pairs of shoes. Stated simply, it is the same outfit as that of the US soldier. In addition, every man possesses the obligatory sea-sack, in which all of our old things are stored. The barracks are heated with natural gas. Everything is there for the prisoners of war. In comparison with what we have experienced, it is very comfortable. But that is only secondary, since we are mostly interested in the garden plots in the camp. All barracks are surrounded by green grass. The streets and sidewalks are spick and span clean and framed by small, bright limestone pillars. In the middle of the compound is a miniature obelisk with the insignia of the paratroopers, a plunging eagle. There is also a relief of the entire continent of Africa, with a miniature of Rommel's tanks pushing as far as El Alamein. Then we stand before a wonderful creation that charms us all, the mill in the Black Forest Valley. It is an authentic model on which nothing is missing. Even the clapper of the mill wheel is easy to distinguish. It is true, and what ability and what love was necessary to create such a masterpiece. Black Forest, my homeland, you are so beautiful. How do you like it here? A grey, crippled Africa fighter asks us as we watch a group of turtles and admire their lovemaking. Very good, I respond, still under the influence of what I have just seen. Yes, when I came here it looked pretty bad, he says as he sits down on a curbstone. Nothing but sand and a few barracks, I can tell you. Were the Americans in agreement with everything that was built here? I ask. Yes, sir. The boys were enthused, he remembers with glee. They even helped us. Everything was different than now. Shit. We should have gotten to know each other earlier, the Americans and us. We would have complemented each other very well. You can believe that the English would have had to fight their lousy war alone. Now we both sit in the ink. We are on the ass of the Prophet, and the Yankees have the Russians at their throat. The whistle has blown for roll call. We'll see you again, comrade. We nod as we toddle to the parade ground, still thinking about what the old fellow said. A queer codger, Hocker notes as we line up. Children and fools speak the truth, Siegfried adds. All the newly arrived non-commissioned officers are to report immediately to the American orderly room to prove your rank, the camp officer of the day announces throughout the camp. Are you crazy? We had to give up our sold books when we left the ship in New York, someone screams from under the shower. Then you were lucky, comrade. The Americans took them all from us when we were captured, another comforts us. Man, I am lucky that I hid mine in the last minute, Hocker announces happily. Mine is lying in Paris in the prison, Siegfried reports, uncaring. Oh well, I comfort myself. I have 2 photographs and a telegram with my exact address, which should be official proof. You can wipe your hind end with them, an old-timer counters. All that stuff doesn't matter. The Americans want a sold book or a document like the orders promoting you to sergeant. I sent those documents home a long time ago, I explain. Then the only possibility is to write to Geneva. Many of us did that, and we were able to receive verification of our rank. Another counsels me. The Americans should about that. My sold book is in New York. They only need to ask, I conclude. Everyone can say he is such and such a rank, and a picture or letter is no documented proof, the American technician explains as I fight with others for the recognition of our rank. I have another witness who was in the same unit as me. I try as a last resort. I'm sorry. He shrugs his shoulders. I have my guidelines. As long as you cannot produce any documentation, your rank will be listed as undetermined and you must work. Please sign here. I hold the rank of sergeant and will only sign in this condition. I remain firm. It's up to you, then sign as a sergeant, he says calmly. An hour later, all those who do not have their sold books are called to the dining hall by the camp spokesman. There is no other possibility but to compile a list and request verification of your rank from the International Red Cross in Geneva. But that takes weeks. In the meantime, the Americans will require you to work and assign you to work groups. The trick in New York was successful, he concludes sarcastically. That is the most awkward net I have ever fallen into, I say angrily to Hocker and Siegfried on our way back to our quarters. It is all shit. Siegfried waves in resignation. Let's just go together and pick cotton. You really want to have your fun with me, I swear in anger. No question that I will go to work too. Hocker tries to comfort me. It doesn't bother me. I wanted to speak with you about it anyway. I am tired of lying around here. Besides that, I am impressed more with $20 than $5. It's just the way they do it that stinks. To take your sold book and then demand later that you have it to prove your rank, that's just a damn swindle. The anger returns to me again. I have even worse news. Siegfried raises his eyebrows. Perhaps you will cool yourselves on it. Out with it. Let's take care of the whole mess at once, I say, not knowing what he has in mind. The Russians are in Berlin, the Americans in Munich. The war is completely lost, he says, fighting back the hot, unbearably hot shines the sun in Oklahoma. But much hotter burn the hearts of the people. By the mill in the Black Forest Valley, in the prisoner of war camp Gruber in the American state of Oklahoma, 3 German soldiers sit and listen to the clattering of the mill wheel and feel they have lost the world. Our thoughts go out to the furthermost corners of Germany, but are continually reduced until they encircle only a handful of people who at this hour offer the only bond. We knew for a long time. Why do we squat now, like when someone has hit us on the head with a hammer? Siegfried breaks the silence. We have known for a long time that we all must die and still are sad when it comes, I explain mournfully. Didn't you always say that we will go on afterward? He offers, undistracted. All the time, I concur. Or perhaps the mill will not clatter any more? Then let's see if the uniforms are dry. I want to put mine on when they are ready, Hocker says and stands up stiffly. Prepare to die. Hocker and I are greeted as we enter the barracks and lay our cleanly washed uniforms on the bed. Do you know the latest? The blonde asks. I'm satisfied with the old, I rejoin. Hitler has abdicated. He laughs idiotically. The Americans claim he shot himself. Another grins. Do you believe that nonsense? The blonde questions. No, I want to have the documentary proof just like the Americans want it from me, I say with double meaning, at which they break out in roaring laughter. Harmless fools, I think. Your awakening will be terrible. On the streets of the compound inside Camp Gruber, German prisoners of war stand in rows of 5. It is 8 a.m. Officers of the American Army appear. Taking a deep breath, the oldest unfolds a sheet of paper, and after looking in earnest over the heads of the prisoners of war, he begins. The war in Europe has ended. The German army has surrendered unconditionally. The German Reich has ceased to exist. The German army is no longer bound by the oath of loyalty to the Third Reich. With considerable satisfaction, the officer raises his head briefly and continues. From this point on, the wearing of the German uniform is forbidden. The same goes for the wearing of all emblems, insignia and medals of the German National Socialist regime. Conduct against these directives will be met with severe punishment. The German prisoners of war in the United States of North America will be returned as soon as the necessary transports are available. Without a word, the Germans return to their quarters. In silence, Hocker and I unbutton our shoulder straps from our field jackets, roll up our German uniforms into a bundle and step outside. Here, I think, is the best place. What do you think, Willie? I ask in dead seriousness. It doesn't matter anywhere, he answers, and shoves the fire shovel that we have brought from the barracks into the sand. A short time later, a hole about 3 feet deep lies before us. In an instant, our uniforms are thrown into the hole and quickly covered. When I had to put it on in November 1938, I was proud, Hocker says softly. A long time, I answer, all ready to leave. Forget it now. I can never do that. I met Gerda in it, he says, with a face from which all hope seems to have disappeared. As dusk lies over the land, it is as still as the grave in the camp. Like an unbearable load, the unbounded hopelessness lies on the souls of the sons of a people God has forsaken, and no light shines in their despair, for no purpose. Everything was senseless. Every offer of blood and possessions from everyone is looked upon as useless. Finished. The Reich of the Germans, our fatherland, has ceased to exist. On the 7th day of the year 0, Hocker, Siegfried and I stand on the edge of the Turtle Run and watch their intensive lovemaking. We have overcome our depression. In its place is a boundless longing for the homeland and our loved ones. We want to go home, without delay. What will they do with this beautiful camp when we are gone from here? Hocker thinks out loud. Perhaps they will erect a bordello for the training division on the other side of the street. In any case, we don't give a hoot. The war is behind us, mumbles Siegfried, while he pokes with a stick to hinder a male turtle as it tries to mount a female turtle who has opened herself to receive him. Let the two of them have their fun. I knock the stick out of his hand. There are old ladies who will not have such a pleasure for very much longer. He should take care of them first, he says, as though it is the most serious thing in the world. How do you think the German women are acting toward the occupation troops? I toss out lightly, although I have long been busy with such thoughts. Are you worried? Asks Siegfried. Personally, no. I just mean in general, I answer self-righteously. They certainly have other concerns, Hocker offers, true-hearted. It is because they have other concerns. Do you remember the situation in the hotel at Soissons? Now it is that far. This time we have failed. No one knows better than I what was going on in France and how bad the French were, I hold up to him. Our women are not French women. He tries to dismiss the issue. Do you believe they always did it for love? I am of another opinion. Often it was not only their sexual need that was the mainspring, I explain to him. If a woman did it for money, then she is a whore. He waves contemptuously. That's right, Siegfried chimes in, but often women combine both the pleasurable and the useful even in these things. Now I want to go home, Siegfried says abruptly as we go to roll call. The return transport will occur as soon as the necessary space is available. Hocker comforts him. Do you know when it will be available? I ask. Yes, says Siegfried, when the victor wants it to be. After roll call, the three of us find a comfortable place in front of the sick bay and sit down in the grass. Like a glowing ball, the sun hangs over the woods to the west. Sharp orders of the drill sergeants ring from the US training camp in our direction. The war is not yet over for them. I break the beginning silence and turn my neck in the direction of the nearby city of Muskogee, just as a convoy of trucks moves toward the camp. The Japanese will take a big bite out of their arse, Siegfried suggests with inner satisfaction. They know that there is a good reason that they are accompanied by the MPs on the trains. Hocker laughs maliciously. It's too bad for those who must bite the dust. The poor devils are certainly worse off than we. A feeling of sympathy for young American boys condemned to death rises in me. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. The Japanese soldiers are at least as dangerous as the Russians, Hocker admits. Perhaps even worse, Siegfried adds. Then those idiots really believe their emperor is a true god, and a hero's death will stand them in good stead in the hereafter. They are dumber than we, I say angrily, as the whole infamy of the ruling class of this world becomes obvious to me. Shortly after 3 a.m., I notice that my friend Hocker is not asleep. The gods may know how many times in this fate-filled night the path we have trod together continues to parade before my spiritual eyes. Paris, Le Bourget, Soissons, Chartres, Alençon, Le Mans, Cherbourg, the trip across New York, St. Louis, and Camp Gruber, Oklahoma, are the stations of our forever preserved friendship. Providence brought us together. But now an incomprehensible fate has willed we must separate. The unexplainable fact that while in New York, Hocker followed the sudden impression to hide his sold book and did not give it up as he was supposed to is the cause of our separation. There are 450 unverified non-commissioned officers, including Siegfried and me, who leave Camp Gruber today for an unknown location. Hocker and apparently Schultz remain, although separated. All our efforts to remain together are for naught. Fate has decreed differently, but we approach it with the conviction that we know how to bear the burden. After breakfast, I stuff my things into my sea-sack with unending sadness in my heart. Hocker sits worlds away at the head of my bed. "Stop that chain smoking. It makes me nervous," I order him, as once again he holds a match to a cigarette. "There," he mumbles, returning to his senses, and throws a tin of tobacco into the sack. "Pack that away. I will give it up when I don't have to see you anymore." "Then you can send me your ration," I tease without looking at him. "You had better look for another dumb fool who will take care of you," he answers, puffing excitedly on his cigarette. "I'll have Siegfried with me. He will swing with me." I try to cover my sorrow. "He is worse than you. Both of you will suffocate in your own filth. I can see it coming," he gamely teases as the whistle blows for assembly. Should I try once more to convince the camp commander? I get afraid when I think about eating the sweet desert alone. I pull his leg in playful meanness. "Stop all that nonsense and get out of here. They are already waiting for you," he says, grabbing a handkerchief because something bothers him in his "The Prisoners of War Selected for Transfer" stand in 5 columns, ready to march. Although the khaki uniforms carry a knife-sharp crease, they appear somewhat grotesque because of the printed letters PW on them. The sea-sacks have already been loaded. Only the clerks with their lists, which they continue to compare, keep us from departure. It is a mood like that at a train station. You have already said goodbye to your loved ones and talked about everything that matters, but the train does not leave. "Okay, who gets home first will immediately visit the families of the others," Hocker says already for the 4th time within 10 minutes. "And when we all get home, we will have a big party." We confirm our plans for the first days of freedom. "You all will have to visit me. And me. And me. Yes, yes, and me," says the German camp spokesman. "But now you two have to do a right face like the others. And then, forward." Quickly we fly into each other's arms. "Be good, Willy," I say softly. "You too," he laughs bravely, and march is the order that tears us apart for God knows how long. 20 minutes later, we are sitting in the blue seats of the Santa Fe Railroad Pullman coach. They are mostly the old faces from the starvation camp Alençon around us. Now they are well-groomed, well-clothed, and well-fed. Siegfried and I are not the only ones who had to leave dear friends in Camp Gruber. Such is the mood in the wagon, but the American pace does not allow anyone time for sentimentality. We have barely sat down before the train rolls into the hot day. That we could not say goodbye to Schultz stinks all the way to the Stone Age and back again, I say to Siegfried, while my unpracticed fingers try to roll a cigarette. "If you keep it up, you will have more tobacco on your pants than in the paper." Siegfried grins. "But with regard to Schultz, you took the words right out of my mouth. He is a man of stature, like I have seldom met before. Perhaps a little stubborn, but completely clean on the inside." I grasp in remembrance. For me, he was too straight, and I'm afraid it will be trouble for him in this land without prejudice, Siegfried thinks. I do not believe he will become acclimated. Do you remember at Cherbourg and someone told him to carry up the honey bucket? He did not refuse, but gave an example. I contradict him. I don't mean that. He offers me a burning match for my rolled cigarette, but his honesty with regard to the hearing officer. He only needed to tell the truth. In the meantime, it became clear to him that some had terribly misused the truth and the faith of a German who loved his homeland. I comfort him. That's why I am worried that he will come across as a bum to our former enemies, when he sees that everything he held sacred is soiled, and he therefore also considers himself dirty, Siegfried means. Do you think it will be different for us? It takes courage and truth, and that is the least that he lacks. Is there something wrong with his marriage? Siegfried asks. What marriage? I ask, not altogether there. Schultz's, naturally. I'm not very smart about such things, but something wasn't quite right. He chuckles to himself. His wife was a little slut earlier. Someone's mistress, that's all, I say, not wanting to go into all the details. And he married someone like that? Who can understand it? He wonders. We don't understand everything about love. She was suddenly there and demanded her rights. Hocker told you in Le Mans that this shortcoming of Schultz is better than none. I peck at his thoughts. I wonder what Hocker is doing. He turns sleepily to the second single man from our circle. Certainly he is sitting by the Black Forest mill, hanging his thoughts on the wheel, I say, and also close my eyes. As darkness falls, we pass through the ocean of lights in Kansas City and are busy preparing the coach seats for the night. What seemed an unbridgeable cleft between guards and the guarded during our first train ride has, for the most part, vanished. The guards are young men like us, and don't concern themselves at all with what is going on in the wagon. In fact, one offers some good advice on how to best divide up the seats so that every one of us has a place to lie. Only the food could be better, but in the end we are used to much worse. By about 11 p.m. the last talkers are quiet. Night has dipped the land into deep darkness. Even our thoughts lose their sharpness, and finally we glide into unconsciousness. On the third day of travel, our train continues to speed in a westerly course through the seemingly unending loneliness of the state of Kansas. Since we wear the uniform of American soldiers, we are hardly recognized as Germans in the towns, unless they happen to see the PW on our backs. And so we are greeted by the citizens of this land, as we are always used to as soldiers. Especially the children and cute young ladies catch our attention. Naturally, here and there something goes wrong at the small train stations where we stop. The tracks are not closed like in Europe, and everyone can walk right up to the train. After they greet us and start to speak to us, the people who were initially excited usually leave in disappointment, but sometimes they are even more curious about us and appear to be looking for the horns on our heads, which the war propaganda has spread about all Germans. They look like us. One can hear, and that brings a sorrowful laugh over the lack of knowledge by people of the 20th century. This happens only once in a while, and we are honest enough to admit that in Germany there are people who know only their own manure piles. What causes us to wonder, however, is the fairness of the guards, who never try to drive the people away from our coaches, not even when they are young ladies who joke with us. It must be because of the much-praised freedom of the Americans. Only during a stop in Fort Wallace can we see long faces at the Red Cross station. Our guards return, loaded like pack animals, with long boxes of pastries over which we are extremely happy. Not only are we joyous, but also the guards and the friendly sisters, because giving by good people always releases a special kind of joy. But still, the American ladies seem annoyed when they discover that their dear offerings are being enjoyed by German prisoners of war, something the guards were silent about when they picked up the delicacies. As the train begins to move and the complications dissolve, the women show their happy faces and wave a cheerful goodbye, but it is not clear if they mean to include us. In any case, we enjoy the sweet pastries without concern, and the guards appreciate our thankful glances. Shortly after 2 p.m., we reach Denver, the capital of the state of Colorado. As usual, the train does not halt in the busy main station, but rather between two freight trains in the switching yard. Still, we have a glimpse of a small part of the city that glimmers in the sun at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, and whose tall buildings offer a scene typical in other large American cities. The difference between this beautiful city and the others we have seen so far is not the tall buildings which catch the eye, but the small dwellings, often built of stone, that look like they are set in parks and bring out a feeling of home in the onlookers. In the background, the Rocky Mountains rise, and on the highest peaks, snow and ice glisten in the sun like polished silver. After this city is behind us, the train goes north a respectable distance from the Rocky Mountains until it rolls into the small farm city of Greeley. An hour later, we are all loaded into transports and rattle out of the peaceful little town on a wide road through sugar beet fields for 3 miles to a barracks camp with guard towers and surrounded by barbed wire. After eating the tastefully prepared pea soup, we shoulder the sea sacks that were unloaded and disappear into our assigned barracks. After a refreshing shower, Siegfried and I wander through the barracks city, Camp Greeley. The streets are all asphalt and wide, as is the entire camp, but as such there is nothing of note. Here there is a division into compounds, and all internees are assigned to companies which are housed in barracks next to each other. Camp Greeley is a pure work camp, and only the company leaders are non-commissioned officers. The comrades here have not worried about how the camp looks, which is easy to understand given the work in the sugar beet fields. But the camp is clean in every corner. There is a reading room with good literature and table tennis, and other games for our entertainment. There is also a movie theatre available. Everything considered, it is very comfortable for us prisoners of war. "How is the work?" Siegfried asks an acquaintance who enters the reading room. "There is no lack of work," he answers, "but we watch out that we don't work too hard. Since the end of the war, they demand more and more from us, and still the food is less and worse." "How is it at the workplace?" I ask with interest. "The daily quota has to be reached before we can leave the fields." He laughs with amusement at our concerned faces. "But they will tell you all of that? And besides, you will see a film in the morning which shows how the work is to be done," he adds, and gives us a copy of a German prisoner of war newspaper, Der Ruf, published in the United States. "That will be a lot of fun when we are the next to hack sugar beets in Colorado." I laugh in Siegfried's face as he despondently grasps the newspaper. "You say it is fun when they assign you how much to do?" He strenuously disagrees. "We will see how it goes, old boy." I soothingly pet his rust-red hair. It won't matter to us how the field looks when we are finished in the evening. At 9 p.m, I throw the newspaper onto the table. "Come, Siegfried, let's go. Otherwise I'll get sick," I tell him, obviously upset. "The way they write is like manure in the cheese box," he offers, and follows me outside. "It's best if we forget about newspapers in the future," he suggests while we are en route to our barracks. "I wouldn't say so," I contradict him. "Only this roof I will never pick up again." We finally know how badly the Third Reich lied to us. Where do prisoners of war in America suddenly develop a knowledge of things that were only possible in the dark Middle Ages? "Do you seriously believe that this newspaper was produced by German prisoners of war?" he asks. "Only the devil knows who really writes it. But in the future I will only pay attention to the public American newspapers," I decide. "We will have to learn much in this land. I have previously read an American paper. They contradict on page 3 what they proclaim in headlines on page 1. We will have to first learn how to read American newspapers." He slaps me on the back and opens the door to the barracks. "Have you heard that we are to hack sugar beets?" an old acquaintance calls to us. "We have," I say as I make my bed. "So?" he takes my arm. "Are you going to participate in the swindle again?" "What do you mean again? So far we haven't done anything." I laugh unsuspectingly, trying to avoid the subject. "So you haven't done anything?" A well-known hothead mixes in. "Didn't we hold our necks out for Hitler and his cronies? Shall we now do the same kind of slave work for the Americans?" "Complain to Adolf. Now comes the consequences of his 1,000-year Reich over us," I say, uncaring. "Consequences, you say? Is it a consequence when they take away your pass and then demand we prove who we are?" he screams, rising to his feet. "I don't really care." I turn away. And I say it must finally stop that they continue to make us work. If we decline to work, there is nothing they can do. We are non-commissioned officers and according to the Geneva Convention are not required to work, he blows out. "And I tell you, we should have stopped much sooner because it is the curse of a wicked deed that the evil that follows must be borne." I laugh from my double-decker bunk in order to provoke. "What evil have we done?" an old-timer questions. "When given the command to march, we marched. Therein lies our entire guilt," I explain. "And if we didn't march, they would have stood us up against a wall," he responds. "And if we don't hack sugar beets, the same thing will happen to us," I laugh. "Then the swindlers are the same here as there." The hothead ends the day as the light goes out. Monday, shortly after 7 a.m, we are dressed in our blue and grey work clothes and partake of the sparse breakfast in the dining hall. A carton of milk and 2 slices of bread, skin thick, is all that is offered us. With only this, we are to work, but the mood is unusually good. "We will hack them good today," Siegfried says happily, and sets his cap on his head as we leave the hall just as hungry as before. As of April 1945, the suggested daily caloric level for sedentary prisoners was 2,500, with a maximum of 3,400 calories daily for prisoners engaged in moderate activity. A month later, the caloric level was reduced to 3,000 calories a day. However, many argued that the ration reductions were much more severe than suggested. Red Cross officials concluded that the rations had been cut too severely and offered as evidence statistics for a camp of 240 men. Coffee reduced from 12 to 14 to 3 to 4 pounds. Margarine from 10 to 5 pounds. Lard from 12 to 1½ pounds. Sugar from 12 to 16 to 4 pounds. Condensed milk from 40 to 7 cans. Prisoners felt that the rations were cut because the Americans no longer needed to worry about American prisoners in the hands of the Germans, and saw the cut also as a measure of revenge against the German prisoners. 3 reasons were given for the cut in rations in May 1945. The prisoners were receiving more food than they really needed. Most had gained weight since arriving in the United States. There was a shortage of foodstuffs in the United States because of the amount of food being sent to Allied countries, and food would be needed to continue the fight against Japan and to help prevent, or at least reduce, starvation in Germany and other war-torn countries. 6. At 7:20 a.m., the company stands in front of the barracks. The poor company leader has trouble until the individual work groups are assembled. 25 men are assigned to a farmer who picks them up at the gate with his own vehicle. Our noon meal is sent with us and consists of a slice of bread, sausage or cheese, and an apple or an orange for each man. The farmer provides the drinking water. "About face," the company commander orders with an expression of concern for the first workday of this group of revolutionaries. But then an astonished laugh breaks out when we start to sing, "No woman has betrayed me like you," as we march in step to the gate where the farmer is already waiting for us. Moments later we climb onto the truck owned by Mr. Miller, a grey-haired man with a well-meaning face. The guard assigned to us is about as thick as he is tall, and apparently has found no time to tie his shoelaces. Laughingly, he helps the farmer close the tailgate and swings up to us on the bench. The old crate rolls out backwards toward the road. From now on, we are costing the farmer money, and time is money, is the saying which describes the pace in this land. 20 minutes later, we stand before a field, and no one can say where it begins or ends. Everything around us is green, 12 inches high of green sugar beets. Only between the rows, through which the machine has already apparently gone, is it greyish gold. Grass is hard to discover. The ground is well worked, but the beets are too thick together. "I want good work to be done," the farmer says, turning to his conscripted helpers, who encircle him grinning while the disinterested guard smokes, leaning against the truck, his rifle hanging on the door handle of the truck. "I do not require a lot of work, only good work, do you understand?" he asks in his difficult German. "Yes." We laugh and observe the funny little hose, whose handles are only about 35 inches long. "I will show you how to do it," he says, as he begins to hack out the extraneous beets in one of the rows, until only one plant remains for every 12 to 15 inches. "That's all there is to it. Who is a farmer?" he asks, looking into our uncaring faces. "We are all students or shopkeepers," Corporal Kunze explains in dead earnest, while the rest of us struggle to suppress the laughter. "Bullshit!" The good man spits out and looks searchingly in the circle. "You know what I want?" He goes to a non-commissioned officer from Bavaria. "I am a pastor, but I understand something about garden work," the trained locksmith and former tank driver explains. "Pastor?" He finally stops and scratches his head. "Well, I can't do anything more. Please begin." Like a pack of young dogs, we bound out into the beet field and the fur starts to fly. With a face that God must have mercy on, the farmer looks at us. "Stop!" he calls after a while and points helplessly to what resembles a battlefield. "Don't do any more. You will destroy everything," he babbles, and shows us the secret of hoeing sugar beets for the second time. "Do it this way and it will be good," he says patiently. "All your comrades have learned how." "We are thirsty," the bogus pastor groans, and looks with radiant eyes into the sky. "I'll get some water," the farmer says, wringing his hands. "Please start again." After a short and silent agreement with the eyes, we go back to the rows. The small hoes play lightly through the vegetation. The farmer watches us excitedly. "Excellent work," he praises us happily. "I am a vulgar German," he explains to Corporal Kunze when he asks about his forefathers. "Then bring us milk instead of water, and you will be well satisfied with us," he offers as an inducement. "It's forbidden. Everything is forbidden. I'm sorry," he swears. "Bring milk and do it fast. It is terribly hot." Kunze remains firm. "Okay," he finally agrees and goes toward his vehicle. "I believe we will do better with the old man if we don't cause any trouble. You know he has to pay $50 for the day, and he willingly gives us something in addition. If he is willing to get milk for us, then we will get something from him to eat. Are you all in agreement?" Kunze asks after his comments. "What do these stupid beets concern me? If it gets any hotter, I will not take another swing," the Bavarian complains to him. "Let's work until noon as we have been and see what the old man springs for." Kunze finally reaches a unity after some debate. When the farmer arrives with the milk, each man has finished 200 yards of well-hoed beets. The man appears very content with his field. "Good work, boys," he reports, and turns to the guard, who sits in the shade of the wagon stewing in his own misery. Unconcerned with them, we continue to work lustily, but the negotiations take too long for us. Even though it is only 10 o'clock, the sun burns hot in the sky. "He can either bring the milk now, or he can take the dirty beets to the man in charge himself," a man from Mecklenburg sighs. "First, he has to convince the guard. Otherwise, he will have problems," Kunze warns with reason, and the work goes on. At exactly noon, we are sitting on the truck and travelling for our noon break toward the mountains, where about 2 miles in the distance, a lonely farmhouse stands in the shadow of trees. The breeze cools our heated bodies. Work, when you are not used to it, how painful it is. In the shadows of a weeping willow, we distribute what little bread we have. Regretfully, the farmer shrugs his shoulders as Kunze explains to him that we can't work with so little to eat. "If I give you food, then I won't get any prisoners," he says, looking with anticipation at the guard, who gets up and goes into the farmhouse. With a dexterity that no one would have thought possible, the farmer hurries into a nearby shed and throws 5 long loaves of white bread out the window. "The bill is correct," says Kunze tranquilly. "A loaf of bread for every 5 men. After 1 p.m. we are hoeing beets again. Yard for yard, hour after hour, we slash our way through the plants. This work is the shits. If I only had my sold book with me. Hocker certainly made the right choice," Siegfried begins to lament. "Think of it as a sport, and it is easier," I suggest to him, friendly. "Sports in this heat, I wouldn't last very long," he says quite apathetically. "Pull yourself together. It will pass. We will get used to it." I try to encourage him. "How long do you think this swindle will last?" he asks, taking a break. "I believe I said once before it took 2 years after the last war." "You must be crazy. Do you believe I will hoe sugar beets for 2 years?" he spits out. "Not in the winter. The things don't grow then, as far as I am informed." "Idiot," he says, and begins again to hack away at the sugar beets. "Okay, boys," the guard calls as the sun nears the Rocky Mountains. "Is it already 5 o'clock?" Siegfried asks, slightly wounded. "Isn't it too bad? Ask him if he will allow you to work overtime." I shove him toward the truck where 2 contented Americans wait for us. As the truck travels back toward camp, we observe our blistered hands. Everyone earned 60 cents today, I think, and raise my view to the glaciers on the mountains. "I can buy a toothbrush in the canteen with what I have earned," I grumble, "or a bottle of aftershave lotion." "Yes, I can do that. Could you do that in Germany?" "Probably not, and they have prepared a warm evening meal for us in the camp. We will stand under the shower and a good bed awaits us. Shouldn't we now be content?" After a refreshing shower, the 2 companies who now have their first workday behind them eat dinner in the best of spirits. Parsnips, potatoes, roast beef and pudding are prepared by the cooks with the usual quality. We only wish there was more. But the chief cook comforts us with an extra slice of bread, and as we leave the mess hall, our stomachs are busy with digestion. When we arrive in the barrack, Siegfried and I are dragged into an unpleasant conversation. The International Red Cross has given up the care of the German prisoners of war. All complaints are to be directed to the Red Cross in Washington, says the philosopher Braun, with raised eyebrows that spread like the wings of a bird. Well, says Siegfried, they haven't worried about us much anyway. That is a pigsty, Braun reacts. Now you can complain to the devil's grandmother.